Well, good morning, Robin. Studies show that every year, thousands of Americans are cheated out of billions of dollars in wages by their bosses. And now this new undercover investigation has found that the government agency that's supposed to protect those workers, the Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division, is a miserable failure. Lynn Krause says she was cheated out of tens of thousands of dollars in overtime pay at her job in Louisiana. But it took 6 months just to get a federal investigator on the phone.
Hopefully we'll have this all worked and done and completed within 30 days.
But it was another 6 months before the Wage and Hour Division of the Department of Labor all of the money they found she was owed.
It was like, don't call us, we'll call you, leave me alone so I can do my job. And almost everyone I talked to talked about how understaffed and overworked they were.
The handling of her case by the Department of Labor is all too typical, according to House Labor Committee Chairman George Miller.
This is a massive failure of government.
At a hearing in Washington later today, Miller will reveal undercover audio tapes made in a kind of sting he authorized against the Department of Labor.
Thank you for calling the U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Referral Line.
Last year, congressional investigators set up fake companies and posed as employees who had been cheated. Their complaints mostly fell on deaf ears at the Department of Labor, as they were discouraged from pursuing their claims.
We have a backlog right now of about 8 months.
Oh,
8 to 10 months.
Okay.
We're not even going to be starting the investigation in 8 to 10 months.
The complaint was never logged into the system, so nobody followed up on it.
In other cases, the undercover callers were put on hold, brushed off, told they couldn't be protected.
You sure you don't want to just have a nice conversation with him yourself?
No, I don't want to, because he gets very loud and angry.
Okay, well, here's another avenue that you can pursue. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have another job lined up?
No.
Okay, you might want to do that before you file a complaint with us. Because I can't guarantee that he's not going to fire you.
That is an absolute outrage that we have workers going to work every day and they have no protection from the government to ensure that they get paid.
The undercover investigators also called in a complaint about what would have been a serious child labor law violation.
They seem to be working all day, probably during school and working on some heavy type of equipment like, I guess you call them circular saws, and the ones that, the machine that makes hamburger meat.
The complaint was never pursued or even recorded in the Department of Labor database. The new Secretary of Labor, Hilda Solis, says she's going to add 250 new field investigators as soon as possible to reinvigorate this office. An office which sadly has come to represent, Robin, the worst stereotype of government bureaucrat.
I mean, in the studio we were hearing the responses from some of the staff members. Can't believe it. How did it get this bad?
Well, during the last 8 years of the Bush administration, this office went into kind of a long-time siesta. Not enough workers, overworked workers, and they just gave up. And they gave up on doing their job, helping average Americans. And these are real people who are really being cheated out of money. You know, if somebody steals from the office, they go to jail. If the office steals your wages, not much has been happening.
Good point there.